Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something you might think you know, the sabbatical year, Jubilee.
Right.
Familiar, right?
Mm.
But our sources suggest there's way more going on beneath the surface. Layers of, social and economic justice. Really radical stuff. You know, initially you hear these terms and think, okay, rules about rest, personal downtime.
That's the usual take, yeah.
But the texts we've looked at, they paint a picture of a pretty profound socio-economic blueprint, really aimed at community justice, even liberation.
That's exactly it. And understanding the historical context here is it's absolutely crucial. You really can't skip it.
Right.
Because without that context, the original meaning, which was, frankly, revolutionary for its time, it gets twisted. And those misunderstandings, they still affect how we think about these things today.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's unpack how these ancient laws were maybe a blueprint for a just, equitable society. And then maybe think about what that could possibly mean for us now. Ready to dig in.
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the Sabbath. I think most people see it as, my day off, individual rest. Is that the whole picture?
It's definitely where the common understanding lands. But if you actually look at the biblical text, you see this clear evolution. In Exodus, the focus is quite a bit on you shall rest. It feels more individual. But then you get to Deuteronomy, and the command, it expands significantly. It shifts. It becomes about ensuring everyone gets to rest. The text is specific. Your male and female servants, your ox, your donkey, all your livestock, the foreigner living among you. Why? So that they may rest as well as you.
Wow. Okay.
It's not just about you anymore. It's this communal thing.
So it's not just being personally pious. It's like a mandated societal pause. For everyone, landowners, sure, but also slaves, foreigners, even the working animals. That feels pretty radical for that time period.
It was radical, and the concepts underneath, liberation, restoration. Think about it. Families separated by work could actually spend time together. It goes way beyond just, not working for a day. It's about social health, community.
Okay, so the Sabbath already broadens rest in a big way. Taking that further, the sabbatical year. What's the main thing people miss about that? Is it just letting fields lie fallow, or is there more?
Oh, it's much, much more than just an agricultural break. Its core name, really, is the year of release. In Hebrew, Shemitah, reflecting that release aspect. It's fundamentally about liberation, debt, and bondage. Two key parts.
Release, okay. What's the first part?
First is debt cancellation. Now, you have to understand ancient debt. It wasn't like maxing out a credit card. It was mostly subsistence debt.
Like borrowing seeds.
Exactly. Borrowing grain in spring, hoping to repay double in the fall after harvest. But if the harvest failed, or something else went wrong,
you're in trouble.
Deep trouble. You could lose your land. And the final step, you or your family members could be forced into servitude, essentially slavery. So this 7-year cycle where debts were canceled, it was a vital social safety net, designed specifically to stop that downward spiral.
A built-in mechanism to prevent total destitution and enslavement. That's profound. Okay, and the second aspect you mentioned, also tied to liberation.
Yes, the second key part was slave liberation. And crucially, it wasn't just, okay, you're free, good luck.
There's more to it.
Definitely. After 6 years of labor, the freed person had to be given substantial provisions. Wages, livestock, grain. The text is clear on this, and the why is critical.
Why? To give them the start.
Precisely. To provide a foundation for self-reliance. To prevent them from immediately falling back into that same cycle of debt and servitude they just escaped. And think about the practical effect on the owner. Knowing you have this significant payout coming after 6 years, it makes taking on slaves a serious financial consideration. A burden, really.
So it discourages just accumulating slaves casually. You'd only do it if absolutely necessary, knowing the cost.
Right. It puts a check on the whole system.
Okay, so sabbatical year tackles short-term debt, temporary servitude. But what about the bigger picture? Land accumulation, wealth getting stuck at the top. That's where Jubilee fits in, I guess. Sounds even bigger.
It is. You can think of it as the completion, the culmination of the whole sabbatical system. It happens every 50 years after 7 sabbatical cycles. And its most revolutionary part, land return.
Land return, meaning?
Meaning ancestral land, the land tied to your family lineage. If you'd been forced to sell it because of poverty, it had to be returned to the original family owners. Free and clear.
Whoa! Every 50 years, land goes back.
Yes. Think about the intention. It's designed explicitly to prevent the permanent concentration of land and therefore wealth and power in the hands of just a few families or individuals. It's a massive, periodic economic reset button.
Okay, put it all together. Jubilee's land return, the sabbatical year's debt cancellation, and the provision for freed slaves. That's a remarkably comprehensive system. It feels like it's aiming for a truly complete fresh start for everyone, cyclically.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about feeling good or individual piety. It was baked into the very structure of their society. Systemic justice.
Which brings up a really interesting question for me. How did these laws, which sound so, economic, so social, become central to religious faith? It seems different from what many people think of as worship today.
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of it. For ancient Israel, these laws were their faith in action. They weren't some separate category called economics or social policy. It was all integrated.
How so?
Well, think about the very first commandment. What does God say? I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. God's primary self-identification is as the liberator.
Okay, the liberator God.
Exactly. So for them, remembering that God, the one who freed them from slavery, wasn't just about thoughts or prayers. It was about actively creating a society that reflected that same spirit of liberation. Implementing justice, freeing people from debt, ensuring land wasn't hoarded. That was how they truly worshiped the liberator God. Socio-economic justice was their core religious practice.
So living justly was the worship, okay? Now these ideas are powerful, even radical. Surely they faced pushback. Did people, especially those with power, try to get around these rules?
Oh, absolutely. You're right to suspect that. History suggests that powerful people often found these requirements inconvenient, economically burdensome.
I can imagine.
So a common tactic was to kind of sidestep them, to emphasize maybe the more ritualistic aspects of religion, the ceremonies, the sacrifices, things that didn't involve, say, canceling debts or returning land. It effectively obscured the core demands of justice in the law. And this is exactly what the prophets were railing against. People like Amos, Isaiah, Jeremiah. They fiercely criticized this. They warned that ignoring the sabbatical year, ignoring the Jubilee, ignoring justice for the poor and oppressed, that this was the path to national disaster, to exile. It was seen as a fundamental betrayal of the covenant.
And bringing that forward, if people historically ignored it, how does that pattern affect us now? What happens when we miss that original justice focus today?
Well, it leads directly to the kinds of misunderstandings we see all the time. We reduce the Sabbath to just personal me time. We might vaguely know about the sabbatical year as maybe something academic institutions do, like a professor taking a year off, or just about letting land rest.
Right, stripped of the economic justice part.
Completely stripped. We miss the liberation. We miss the debt cancellation, the slave release, the land return. We miss the entire socio-economic dimension that was so central. And this isn't just an academic mistake. It diminishes our whole understanding of what biblical faith and justice are actually about. It has real consequences for how we think about justice in our world today.
Okay, so we have this deep original meaning focused on liberation and justice. How does Jesus connect to all this? How does understanding this law help us understand his mission?
Well, think about what Jesus himself said, a key statement. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them.
Fulfill them. What does that mean in this context?
The phrase the law and the prophets, it's shorthand for the whole Hebrew Bible, essentially. But crucially, it includes not just the specific rules, but the entire spirit embodied in them. The spirit of liberation we've been talking about, the justice championed by the prophets, the core ideas of the sabbatical and Jubilee years.
So Jesus came to fulfill that spirit.
Exactly. He came to fully embody, reveal, and ultimately achieve that profound spirit of liberation for the oppressed, the establishment of true justice. So understanding this radical core of the law, releasing captives, canceling debts in a broader sense, bringing good news to the poor, it's absolutely key to grasping what Jesus was about. His mission makes so much more sense against this backdrop. And honestly, it's a bit unfortunate that sometimes traditional interpretations can miss this. They might focus very literally on certain aspects of the law without fully integrating this powerful historical context of liberation and justice. And that can unintentionally diminish the sheer scale and impact of what Jesus was teaching and doing.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. What we've really seen in this deep dive is that the Sabbath, the sabbatical year, the Jubilee, they were way more than just rules about taking a break.
Much more.
They were concrete, powerful tools, mechanisms built into society, designed for community justice, for liberation from economic hardship.
And I really want to stress this again, ignoring that historical context, the original purpose. It doesn't just make the text less interesting, it actually distorts their meaning. It can even warp how we apply them, or fail to apply them, to our own lives and societies today. Understanding that original radical intent is critical.
So the final thought for you, our listener, is this. If the core spirit of these ancient laws was truly about concrete liberation from debt, from bondage, and about realizing economic justice within the community, what does it mean for us today to try and fulfill that spirit? In our incredibly complex modern world, what kind of liberation do we need now? And what might a jubilee for our time even look like? Something to reflect on.